This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
On Easthampton.
Yeah, hello.
All right, good evening, everyone. Now that cable TV is kicked in, we can start the meeting. This is the planning board meeting for the town of Southampton for December 6, 2023. We have board members Dan LaValle, Stephen Johnson, Mark Donald, and myself, Paul Demond. Present this evening, Paul Fergal is asked to be excused because of illness. We also have our board consultant, the former planner of the town of Southampton, or South Hadley, Richard Harris. We have 3 A&Rs to take care of first this evening, and we'd ask someone from Heritage Surveys here. Is Bob Oliszak? Are you here to present for all of them?
Yes.
Okay. Come before the podium, and you want me to pull those up for you, Bob?
If you could. Do you need the Mylar and points now? Or?
Well, I'll need them, but I'll probably be signing those after. Dan, talking to me?
Yep. So now you just pull up with a file on his chair, and it'll show up on both screens.
So I can pull up the email, right?
Yep.
Which one are you going to present first, Bob?
I can do Blanchard, I guess. I see it right there.
Okay. So, explain where we're going with this.
Okay, what they would like to do, the estate of, I think it's Doug Blanchard, they would like to do kind of rearrange that property line. So what basically is going to happen, bottom line, is parcel C2 is going to be conveyed to, I think it's the parcel to the southeast of it and incorporated to make one contiguous lot. And then the rest of parcel C1 is going to be conveyed to, let me see if I can pull up the names here.
Things like.
I can't read it up there. So parcel C1 will be conveyed to Jason and Becky Leck, I think that's how you pronounce it, and incorporated with their parcel. C2 is going to go to Michael Blanchard to form one contiguous parcel. So they're basically reconfiguring property lines there.
Simple enough.
So in effect, you're just carving out C2, correct?
Correct. That's going to be, yep, going to be incorporated with the parcel to the southeast. And then C1 will be conveyed to Leck.
So they're basically going to combine Leck's property with C1 and Blanchard's property with C2.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Questions from the board?
Where is the street frontage for parcel C1? It's not.
It's not a building lot, but it's going to be incorporated with Leck, which so their frontage will be Jason and Becky Leck. The area is 3.846 acres. So the total area for their combined parcel will be 16.945 acres, but their parcel will be where their existing house is.
If I can, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I would note that neither parcels that are being divided have frontage, but the changes doesn't affect frontage of any property. Because the Blanchard property has frontage on Crooked Ledge Road, C2 will be adding supplemental acreage to that, and same with C1. The Leck property has frontage on Crooked Ledge Road, and it'll be adding supplemental acreage to their property.
Correct.
That answer your question?
Yeah, I didn't see how they were achieving their goal, but that explains it when it's merged with a frontage lot, which you hadn't gotten to.
Mark?
No, I'm good. You good? I have no concerns. Any other questions from the board?
Does the consultant find that it meets all the dimensional requirements?
Yeah, they don't alter any dimension requirements, they add to acreage.
It appeared so to me. I move that we endorse this 81P plan.
Do we have a second?
Second. Oh, there you go. You can have it, Mark.
Motion's been made by Stephen and seconded by Mark to accept the A&R for Douglas Blanchard. Any other further questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Approved. Next one you're going to attempt would be
For Robert Bard on Valley Road. This one we had brought before the board, I think, in October. He wanted to cut out one lot. The original plan we did showed, he owned, I don't know if you can, are you going to pull that up? Let's see that.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that's Blanchard.
Yeah, it's hard to see. This is the 52 Valley Road. This one, yeah. Huh. Easy to see on my computer. Hey, you want me to send it to you?
Did you find that one?
Yeah, I'll forward it to you.
I just forwarded mine from here.
Forwarding. All demon. I'm sending to your Gmail. Sending. Forward. Planning.
In your packet, while we're waiting for that email to catch up, in your packet is the plan, so you can proceed on that, Bob.
Okay. So again, like I said before, this plan was presented to the board back in October and approved. However, due to the deed, the legal deed requirements that he went over with Mr. Bard went over with his attorney, we had not shown a deed line between Lot 1 and the remaining land that he owns. His attorney recommended that we do show that line because there's a house on the remaining land of. So what we did was we edited the plan to show that. It's basically the same plan with the same intent. There it is there. So we added that deed line between parcel, which that's the old plan. The new one shows lots 1 and 2. 1A and 2 are the right now one parcel. He's proposing to split it into 2. And then he owns parcel 1B as well. So we showed that on this edited plan, we showed that deed line between 1A and 1B as a line because it's shown that way in the assessor's and 1B has a house on it. So per the advice of his attorney, we edited that plan, and we're resubmitting for new signatures.
So on that parcel 2, are you looking for a bond address then too?
Yes, I think we had gone over that. I think we agreed on 54.
So you are creating a new lot then?
Correct.
Now, this was brought before us previously, correct?
Yes, yep. And it was basically the same plan with, like I said, this one has one change, is that the lot line between, this is an older plan, but the lot line between 1A and 1B, his attorney recommended that we do show that.
All right, so...
He owns both of them, but,
So the address has already been assigned,
yes.
and the fee has already been paid up front. So this is just a
It's just a,
resubmission.
right,
Right.
yep.
I found the updated picture, if you want, I emailed it to you too. I'll pull that one up.
This is it's pretty slow catching up to you. You can,
This is, there's two.
all intents and purposes, I'll leave that up there for now. But in any event, any questions from the board then on the realignment? Stephen?
Tell me what you mean by realignment.
Robert?
Just an additional line showing on this plan that didn't show on the previous?
Correct. So the line that you see there, this is the original plan. This is an old, actually, this one doesn't apply. The plan that we brought to the planning board showed a no property line between parcels 1A and 1B. Mr. Bard owns them both, so we showed him as one single parcel. However, his attorney said maybe we should, because you have a house on both of them and you own them both by the same deed, but there is a deed, they're specifically called out for separately by deed. So
This
it's,
is the
So you're
updated one
seeking
here,
our
Robert?
endorsement so you can record the plan and reserve the title?
yes. So this is not the plan that I have here. This is not the latest one.
Essentially, the difference between this one and what it's got before you now is the dashed line between these two lots is a solid line.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I don't have that one.
So the intent of this plan is he's dividing, parcel 1A and 2 are now, right now, one contiguous parcel. He's dividing that and creating parcel 2.
Not sure what the motion is. It's already been endorsed, but a line change.
They have-
So we want to endorse the new plan.
To change.
There's a motion to endorse the A&R plan as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Click record.
Motion's been made by Stephen and seconded by Dan. Any other further questions from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Next one is Lamontagne.
Lamontagne, Gilberti on Parsons Way.
Are you showing that one, Dan?
I can find it for you. Lamontagne.
Can't get over what happened with that.
Not La Valley, Lamont.
That wasn't sent with the Bard one, was it, Robert?
Pardon me?
That wasn't sent along with the Bard one, was it?
I think I might have sent them together.
Yes, it was.
I can't remember.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, there are two, yeah, the Blanchard has the application and the plan to it, and the Bard email had the two plans, one for Lamontagne, one for Bard.
Oh, since I can't find that, go ahead. We've got the plan here anyway in front of us, so go ahead on that, Robert.
Okay, so Mr. Ben Lamontagne and his neighbor Margie Gilberti had a kind of a disagreement over their common boundary. due to a fence being over the property line as it originally was laid out and in the subdivision. So what they agreed to do was reconfigure the property line to accommodate the location of the fence. So it's an even, there's actually 3 parcels being conveyed. The area of the parcels, it basically works out to an even land swap between the 2 of them area-wise. But the new lot line configuration just accommodates Ms. Gilberti's fence so that it is no longer encroaching on Mr. Lamontagne's property. So according to this plan, you can see it's a little bit busy, but Mr. Lamontagne owns parcel 1, Ms. Gilberti owns parcel 2. Mr. Lamontagne will be conveying parcel 1A to Ms. Gilberti to accommodate her fence, and then on the other side of that, Ms. Gilberti will be conveying parcels 2A and 2B to Mr. Lamontagne so as the original areas of both parcels are maintained after this is completed.
So it's a swap to accommodate a fence.
Correct.
Questions from the board?
Are these property lines going to be pinned?
Yes.
I have no questions.
Go ahead, Dan.
I'd like to make a motion to endorse the A&R as presented.
Second?
Made by Dan, seconded by Stephen. Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Now, in the essence of time tonight, Robert, if you would leave all those plans for me,
Absolutely.
I'll sign them and I'll drop them off at your office tomorrow.
Okay, right here.
Yep, just wherever you can find a pile. Appreciate it, thank you.
Sir? All right. Have a good
Bye.
night.
All right, next on the agenda is our public hearing for the solar agrivoltaic array at 160 East Street, map 36, parcel 1 for Blue Meadow Brook LLC. I'll ask the applicant tonight if they have got the return receipts for the mailing. Did you bring those along?
Yes.
Okay. So these are the receipts for the abutter notifications that went out according to the stipulations of the bylaw. And the public hearing was published in the Daily Hampshire Gazette on November 21st and 28th. Pursuant to provisions of Mass General Chapter 40A, Southampton Planning Board will hold a public hearing December 6, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the first floor meeting room at Town Hall, 210 College Highway, to discuss the solar special permit, Section 16, and stormwater permit, Section 14 applications of Blue Meadow Brook LLC. The purpose of this application is a proposal to construct a 1.99 megawatt DC solar agrivoltaic array at 160 East Street, Cester's map 36, parcel 1, the site of Bashista Orchards. The complete application is available at the town clerk's office during regular business hours or to view on the planning board website or by request at planningboard@townofsouthampton.org. Any person interested in or to be heard on this application should appear at the time and place designated above. So I will ask a representative from Blue Wave. Is it Michael going to be presenting?
Yep.
Michael, would you state your name and your occupation and firm you represent and the application going forward tonight for this plan?
Yeah, so Michael Z, Project Director at Blue Wave, representing on behalf of the applicant Blue Meadow Brook LLC. So we'll be presenting the application for agrivoltaic project with Bashista Orchards for the special permit application. Also tonight with me are a couple other members from Blue Wave that can introduce themselves, time being, if the questions come up. Our civil engineer for the project is VHB, Steve, representing that. And we also have permitting counsel, Tom Reedy from Bacon Wilson here tonight, also with the project team. So thank you, Chair, Board, and community members for the time this evening. I shared a deck with Dan, and I think I also emailed it to you earlier, Paul, of a couple of slides that I'd like to present, just a quick introduction on agrivoltaics, and then get into some project details as well at a high level before passing it off to Steve to get into more of the engineering details on the site plan.
Has a copy of these slides been submitted? It's a hard copy. Because we need a copy for the public record file.
Yep, yeah, so the one that I emailed over to Paul can be record for public, yep.
You can submit hard copies, okay. That's great, thank you.
Thank you.
Is this the one?
Yep, thank you. All right. So thank you for that. If you can go to slide 3, real quick on Blue Wave. So we're based out of Boston. We've been developing solar projects since 2010. We are a solar and storage energy developer and then owner and operator of the assets once developed. We've developed our first agrivoltaic project in 2018 in Grafton, Massachusetts, and presently have over 60 either in development or developed agrivoltaic projects. If you go to the next slide, I want to touch on what makes agrivoltaics different from a typical ground mount system. And I'll probably have my colleague Jesse come up here to provide a little bit more color, but in short, the panels are elevated, so it's 10 feet height, and as a tracking system, when they're horizontal, it'll be 10 feet height. When they're tracking the sun going east to west, the highest point will be about 13 feet, lowest point about 7 feet. Other big difference is the inter-row spacing. Typical ground mount system might be around 8 feet in between rows or so. We have it spaced out further for agrivoltaics to ensure that there's enough sunlight and not shade going on to where the planned crops are going to be. For this project, in the expansion of the orchard area, it's going to be about 26 feet panel edge to panel edge for the row spacing. And then in the current area where there's hay production, there'll be continued hay production, and that's about 18 feet panel edge to panel edge. So I'll pause there to see if there's anything my colleague Jesse wants to add in here.
Sure. Real briefly, Jesse Robertson Dubois, with Blue Wave. I'm Director of Sustainable Solar Development. I come from an ag and a land conservation background, formerly with American Farmland Trust, trustees of reservations. What's really nice about agrivoltaics is it's really looking at that inter-row space in between the rows of panels and saying, what can we still use that land for productively, whether that's habitat, whether that's agriculture. And the really cool thing about these tracker systems is if you look at the map, you can see those rows are running north-south rather than east-west in a traditional system. What that does is it lets light in between the rows in the middle of the day, it lets light underneath the rows of panels in the morning, and it lets light underneath the rows of panels in the afternoon. So unlike a traditional system that faces south that has a really defined shade line behind and underneath those rows of panels, you have a much more even spread of light in there. And for an orchard system, you have this area in the middle of the panels, in between the panels, where the trees can be planted and cultivated and have basically full sunlight, because we're going to have, they'll be pruned so they're not high enough to shade the panels, but they'll be in the sunlight throughout almost the entirety of the day. They lose a little bit very early in the morning, very late in the afternoon, but most of the day those trees will have full sun.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, and this slide just presents the kind of overview of the SMART program and the oversight from agrivoltaics. This project submitted a predetermination application to DOER, and in consultation, MDR reviewed the project, did a site visit. UMass Amherst CEE also reviewed the application, gave feedback. After the review, they deemed that, as designed, it meets the determination as an agrivoltaic system under the SMART program. For those not familiar with the SMART program, there's incentives through the state for solar projects. With agrivoltaics, there's a specific incentive if it is an agrivoltaic system. Over the life of the project, once it's developed, annual basis for the 20-year subsidy of the SMART program, there'll be annual reports that go to DOER and MDR to ensure that agriculture, continues during the life of the project there. And 2 images here just showing projects Blue Wave has developed, one in Palmer, Massachusetts on the left. That's about 18 feet in a row spacing there. That's hay production. And then the Grafton, Massachusetts one, that one image shows a tractor in between where there's vegetable production presently, and there's also cow pasture on another section of that array in Grafton. So we just a little detail on Pachista Orchards, and we're very excited to be working with the landowner there to help expand the orchard, add about 500 plus trees, fruit trees, and then continue the hay operation that's been going on for several years there. And the site view here is really a duplicate of the image there as well. So at this point, I'd hand it over to Steve from VHB to get a little bit more detail on the engineering side.
I'm Steve Herzog from VHB. I'm actually an ecologist, but VHB is the environmental consultant and civil engineer for the project. And I'm not sure what the most efficient way to go about this would be. You have the application. Would you like me to give a brief, a little bit more information about the project, or do you want to go through the application?
You can continue on with the presentation.
All right, so you can see in that overview, agrivoltaic, there would be 2 sections of the array, one over hay meadow and one over an expanded fruit orchard. Total parcel is about 94 acres, according to the assessor's map. The solar array area will be about a total of 9 acres, and something on about 25 acres of total land disturbance. So there'll be an access road from East Street, 18 to 20 feet. And there'll be utility. The only utility on the site will be the electric interconnection, because the system will produce electricity. That will be a buried underground conduit following the access road until East Street. The utility that will take the power will have several above-ground poles. I think it's 4 or 5 poles adjacent to the road, but the rest will be underground. There will be a temporary laydown area. Trucks will enter and need to turn around, need to store materials. That will go away after the project is completed. Stormwater, we are also applying for the stormwater management permit coincident with this site plan approval application. So stormwater is being managed in compliance with the town's bylaw.
Excuse me, we'll handle that stormwater information after the site plan, okay?
Okay, sounds good. Well, so then I've given you the general overview. There's the access road, the 2 arrays, and the utility. There'll also be a concrete pad with battery energy storage, which is proposed nearest that southern array, which is on the hay meadow. And the project has been designed to comply with all of the site plan approval requirements in the bylaw. So I'd be happy to answer questions, any more detail you might want.
Steve, is it 2 concrete pads, or are you going to have 1?
I believe there's...
Yeah, I can point it out here. So here's the access road. You can follow down. There'll be 1 equipment pad
Right.
by this array.
Right.
And then another equipment pad here. So the two equipment pads, it's proposed the battery energy storage would be at the second one here, which would be a larger area.
And see, battery energy storage is strictly for the energy generated on this site?
Yep.
Okay.
You mentioned the construction period laydown site that will go away. Could you say more about that, please?
Sure. There's an area that will be required at most 100 feet by 200 feet. It will require some grading. It's in the northwest corner there. After the panels are erected and the access road is completed and all the construction, the stormwater basins, that access and laydown area will be replanted to the existing conditions, existing hay meadow.
So it's roughly half an acre in area.
Yeah, 100 feet by 200 feet, yeah.
So in some places, and you mentioned the total area of disturbance a little greater than 25 acres.
Yes.
Number 19 acres also appears. Can you explain what that refers to?
That was a previous concept design. And now the total area that will be enclosed, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, the potential lease area is about 25 acres, right?
Sorry.
So that will not all be disturbed. There will only be grading on the access road and some disturbance for erection of the solar panels, but the total area of the project site is about 25 acres.
I think it'd be helpful to go through the waivers you're asking.
Certainly. Well, the first one that Mr. Harris pointed out earlier is we have asked, and we will ask for a waiver for the tree counting requirement. There's a requirement in the bylaw for counting trees that are greater than 10-inch diameter at breast height. And that will be a large task because there will be several acres of tree clearing required in order to accommodate the expansion of the orchard. So I can... It looks like we have approximately 6 acres of forest area converted to the dual-use orchard and solar. So we'd request a waiver of the requirement to count trees in that area.
Just note the requirement is not just counting, but to actually depict them on the plan.
We are also requesting a waiver of the setback requirements in the southern part of the site. There is a parcel in common ownership, and the panels are portrayed as coming within 8 feet of that common ownership parcel.
I'd like to point that out just so it's clear.
Is this what you...
Right here.
Yes.
So it's...
Where are you at?
Side yard setback is 35 feet
This one here.
per the bylaw, and it's about 8 feet here, but it's common ownership. So it's just in this section here.
So it's well interior to the overall combined parcels of the project site. And elsewhere on the site, the setbacks are respected, so 35 feet side yard and rear yard, and the front were well more than...
So it's basically a setback from the common ownership property.
Yes, exactly.
Do you want to follow these, Richard, or do you want to...
And then... No, I just let him go through the
Sure.
waiver request.
The bylaw states that installations shall not occur on any slopes greater than 15% in order to minimize erosion. So we're requesting a waiver from adherence to that requirement strictly because there are some localized areas where the slope does exceed 15%. In general, it's less, it's 10%. And I think I spelled it out in the letter. We have, our preferred option is to request and obtain a waiver from that requirement, which will eliminate the need for any grading where the solar panels will be. There'll only be grading for the access road. If we were to strictly adhere to that requirement, then we could grade those 15% slopes so they're all, a wider area is smoothed out, so to speak. And the overall area of the arrays would be less than 15% slope. It would require disturbance. We would prefer not to clear strip topsoil and grade, because that will increase the potential for erosion and also will complicate the agriculture portion of the project, requiring grading and then replacement of topsoil.
Do you have a slopes analysis plan to show us the extent and location of those areas?
We don't have a separate plan with the slopes identified, at least not as part of this package.
Can you identify them on that map at all?
Yes. They're more visible in your package, but there are a few areas adjacent to the access road, this edge of the solar array.
My questions, are they shown on the civil plan sheets you submitted?
The topographic contours are shown on the
But are the slight locations of deviation from the 15% standard
I
shown?
don't believe so.
Okay. Would it be possible for you to make a markup of that and provide that to the board?
Yes, it would. We have that information, but we didn't portray it because it wasn't specifically required, so we thought, well, we'll go with the contours for now. So just looking at the last waiver is documentation by an acoustical engineer of the noise levels projected to be generated by the installation. So during construction, of course, there'll be minor and temporary daytime noise from construction vehicles. During the operation, there will be noise from transformers and inverters. And the sound produced by the system will be on those pads that are interior to the site. So we've provided a sound modeling study from a similar solar project that was done elsewhere, and are requesting the board to consider that as appropriate for meeting this requirement. And that modeling shows that at the property boundaries, the sound levels, let's see how we put it, would be minimal. This was provided as one of the attachments.
You refer to the comparison as model.
Yes.
Is it documentation of a finally installed site, or it was the projected sound impact of a not yet built site?
The latter. It was the projected modeled impact.
I guess I'd follow up. Do you have any built examples using the same brands and size of equipment?
Yes, we probably could do that, but...
Could you stand, just identify yourself?
Yeah, Aaron Sims, Blue Wave. We could probably put a sound recorder at a functioning array, the distance that it is from the road to simulate. We wouldn't be able to pick it up. I don't think we'd be able to hear any noise, so I don't think it would be useful.
Was it the arrays or the generators or the inverters we were questioning? What's on the pad?
Yeah, inverters, the transformers.
Yeah.
Fans?
In the transformers and battery systems, yeah.
modeling takes in consideration the tree cover and vegetation buffering that you might not have replicated if you tried to record the sound from another site, because each site, I assume, is somewhat unique in terms of density of vegetation and how tall they are. And what have you.
Is it possible for the audience to ask questions at this point, or no?
Hold on just a minute. You want to complete this
No,
review? with
I was just
waivers
making
on?
a comment about that.
Are the waivers all set here?
I think he's gone through all the waivers. I would just note, we mentioned inconsistency on the area. That was mentioned in the application versus the application letter.
Yes.
And if I'm reading the plans wrong, let me know, but the fence height seems to be different between the detail and the plan sheet.
You have a good eye for detail. I will defer to Mike. What is the proposed fence height?
Yeah. It will be at least 7. Yeah.
So, electrical code 7, so it's going to be 7 or greater to make sure
Okay.
it meets code, and that'd be around the,
But not over 8.5.
And not over 8.5, for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Our preference for fencing is an agricultural style woven wire fence. There's one manufacturer that makes a 7-foot version that I personally kind of like. There's a lot of manufacturers that make 8-foot ones. That's some of the reason for our inconsistency and having not firmly defined it. You know, sort of looking at which particular manufacturer's product we end up using.
And as the board knows, I've gone through the application with a assessment of completeness, and I think it is complete. I'm not saying it's good or bad, just that it's a complete submission. And I've also provided you with a development standards review as to how I think it does or does not meet standards, and I think it generally does. There's waivers requested that they've mentioned tonight that would need to be addressed in order to meet all those requirements. And some of it is a board make their own assessment as to whether or not those standards are met. There's some variability and not always objectivity in the standards. And I've also provided you with a blank, as well as my first cut at the review criteria. And that's mainly that is all for the board to make that determination in conclusion.
Before I open it up to the public, the board have any more questions for the presenters here, the engineers, et cetera?
Limited to site plan. No.
Ian?
I'm good for now.
Mark?
I'm curious about the construction noises. The poles are driven into the ground, like a power driver scenario. Is that, there's one about the noise factor for the...
Both to support the panels?
Right. The details show the driven piles.
I think they're customarily screwed, or are they driven?
Yeah, is the question about the noise of the pile driver?
Right, I mean, there's a lot of posts going in there. There's now the neighbors hearing the pile driver for a long period of time, maybe an impact on the neighborhood.
Yes, definitely it will be, have some noise for a few weeks.
And then in the situation where I think you have like 8 foot of bury for the poles, if you encounter ledge, what do you do in that situation? You wind up blasting for the ledge? Or
Drilling usually, it depends on the site.
so you have a rock drill out there, which is extremely loud as well.
Yeah, a rock drill or pinning it to the ground or some other option, but typically it would be drilled.
And what's the rough period of construction for installing this for, is it a week, 6 months, 2 years?
The whole project?
Yeah.
Start to finish?
Yeah.
It really does depend on seasonality and rain and everything, but at most a year, most projects like this size would be 3 to 6 months. The civil side of it might start earlier, and the electrical side would end later, depending on contractors' abilities.
Okay.
So you're saying that if weather conditions allow, it'd be a 3 to 6 month construction period?
Sorry, so
So if weather conditions allowed, it'd be a 3 to 6 month construction period?
yeah.
And you typically do it probably April through August or something like that?
No, it could be all year. The tree clearing we like to do in the winter.
Okay.
To accommodate we don't think there's any northern long-eared bat populations here, but just as a rule, we try to cut in the winter so that we don't have any chance of interfering with them. They're hibernating at that point. So we might do tree clearing in the winter and then do some of the civil work at that time or into the spring. Later in the construction process, after the steel's driven, it is much more quiet and hand tools, not excavators.
I have a question for whomever wants to answer it. What's the lifespan, 20 years on these or more panels?
Much more.
Much more? How much more?
There are systems that were installed in the 70s and 80s that are still functioning, so panels will last a long time. They degrade 0.5% a year.
It's not like your home panels, which only virtually have a 20 to 25 year life, right?
There are a lot of home panels, it means residential solar. Yeah, those panels are the same technology, and they'll last a long time, but they degrade, they do make less power as time goes on.
Any other questions from the board before I open it to the public?
So that raises another question. You said they degrade about 0.5% per year. So over a 20-year period, degrade 10%. At what point it does become necessary to replace the panels?
Yeah, it's going to be a hard thing to answer right now because you don't know that they degrade 0.5% every year. That's the estimate.
But if we make that assumption...
You wouldn't need to do it in year 20, that's for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Think of it this way, we're investing in the system today, and wouldn't make any sense to...
I don't know if it gets to 70%, 80%, at what point of degradation do you then look at replacing the panels?
Yeah, again, it would depend on the economics at that time. But the way that we model this is a 35-year life of the system.
Okay.
And what's going to come into play is the landowner, and the Bashista's view on the system come that time. If they don't want it, after 35 years, we'll decommission it.
So your projection basically is that it's going to last at least 35 years that we need to replace the panels?
Yes. The inverters and some of the other equipment need to be replaced, and we model the inverters being replaced in year 12.
Okay.
Other equipment throughout the system.
A little question about the clearing of the trees. You mentioned in there that the trees will be cleared and they are going to be chipped, and the chipping will remain on site. And I don't know if there's a room for that, and how's that not, going to negatively impact the existing soil or vegetation, just putting all these chipping on top. And associated with that, are the stumps going to be cut flush, or are they going to be removed? And if they are removed, that's proposed to be chipped, or the stumps to be hauled off?
Yeah, so the stumps will be removed. We need soil that Tom can plant trees in. And then, I guess, it's an important part of it, right? I don't want to give a firm every chip will leave or every chip will stay kind of scenario. There is value in being able to put some of that organic matter back into the soil. My preference as a farmer would be to keep the stump material on site first, because there will be more mineral soil in that stump, and if we grind that and keep that, that's something that will retain more of that soil organic matter there. If we're talking about tops, if we're talking about stems, I'm less concerned about that stuff. If we can send saw logs or the part of the tree that we would look at as a saw log off-site and keep as many of the fine tops, that's where most of the nutrients in the tree actually are. So it gets into that kind of thing. We have to look at the overall amount of material. We don't want to overwhelm the soil with too much carbon because that'll tie up nitrogen. And again, Tom's trying to put trees in here. So I hate to not be able to give a really straight answer, but it is a little nuanced that way because of the purpose of trying to keep what we can to improve soil quality without overwhelming it with too much carbon.
I'll bring another way. I guess the application said you were going to keep it on there, so I guess a little clarification would be.
I'm sure if we were trying to keep all of it, Tom would say, hang on, guys, there's a lot. When we say we're going to keep it there, we're primarily thinking about what is the nutrient profile of what's in those trees that can add value and keep that value.
Anything else, Mark?
I'm good.
At this time, we're going to ask members from the public, any interested parties, abutters, or for general information, if you would come to the podium and state your name and address and ask your question, and one of these professionals will address it for you or this board. Don't all come at once. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. My name's Herm Eichstead. I'm at 190 East Street. We also own a house at 186 East Street. I think we're probably the closest residents to the project. So I have a concern about noise. When it's built and the inverter, is that constantly humming?
No, the inverter, no, I mean, any of you can take this if you want, but.
Yeah, the inverters during the day will be on and making a fan type noise.
How far would that travel?
Like any other sound.
Well, I mean, we got jets going overhead. We got
Sure.
Tom mowing the fields. That sound travels. And how far do you think that would go?
It is the sound of a fan, and so I should have clarified. Imagine a small fan being that far away from your house.
How small? Oh, okay.
Yeah, small.
It's not like this or...
No, there will be several inverters, so they're the same size as if you've ever seen a residential solar system. The inverters that are in people's basements or on the side of the house, this big. It will be those throughout the array, and that wiring will get brought into a central.
Would you say it's less than a residential heat pump? Less noise?
Probably. Depending on the size of the heat pump, yes.
And then the only other question I would have is if any of that affects the animals in any way, the wild animals or any dogs that may be walking by it. Is there any issue with that?
No more than heat pumps. I don't think so.
Okay. And is there any fencing?
We've been talking with the Shistas about not having a fence around the array so that the agricultural activity can continue as it does now.
Mm-hmm.
There will be fencing around the major equipment. We do want to, for safety, keep people out of that. But like this.
Yeah, just to point out again where the pad would be, where the inverter would be. So there's one pad right here. This would be fenced in. And then another over here that would be fenced in.
Both of those are on the other side of the bridge, so to speak.
Yeah.
You're looking out at the field that goes up in that area.
Mm-hmm.
That's on the far side of that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Aaron, when you mentioned size of fan like this, they've done about 12 to 18 inch type size fan?
Yeah, I don't know fans that well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But you mentioned that, I
Yeah,
get
I'm
some
just thinking
idea.
of when I'm standing at an inverter, the noise that I hear, it's similar to the fan that I use at night when I'm sleeping. You
It's
know, it's
probably
like a 12-inch or...
12-inch, okay.
Like, maybe a good piece of context, people think about, if you've driven by another ground mount solar array and seen like the big green box sort of style inverter in there, that's what I used to think of as what all solar array inverters look like. Those are larger and have larger cooling systems on them. We've largely pivoted towards what are called these string inverters, which are handling much smaller groups of panels. So you have several small string inverters instead of the ones with the monster. They're much quieter. Without knowing exactly what technology we end up installing here, it's hard to say 100% this, but my family raises sheep in solar arrays as well. On the sites with big central inverters, you can hear that in much of the site. In the sites with the string inverters, you don't hear it walking down the row until you are 10, 15 feet away from it. I mean, you know, and it sort of turns on a bright sunny day, and it's quiet all night. The other question about noises bothering animals, when my sheep break out of their internal movable fencing to keep them where I want them so they do a good job eating the vines on the backside of the panels, they don't hang out on the inverter, which is aggravating for the techs when they show up to do work on it. It's aggravating me because I have to go sweep the stuff off the pad. I don't see any evidence in the stock that I work with around solar panels and inverters that they bother them at all. On the contrary, I'd say they kind of like it. I don't know why, but that's where they hang out when they break out of their fence.
Any other questions, comments? Go ahead, sir.
Yes, hello, my name is Chad Baruki. I have two residences, 115 and 132 County Road. Okay. So a question I have is, our property comes up around the top of East Street. Are you connecting to the grid on East Street? Where will this, and will this require new telephone poles, or is it existing? What will you be? How will you be connecting? Are you adding new?
Could you point out where you live on that map over there, please, for us?
We have farm property right here, so we own this parcel here, and my house is right here. So I've got two parcels right here. But it come up around, all the way up, our property comes all the way around here to the top of East Street here. But it's a good park right here.
Yep.
And there are poles here on that side of the road, and these poles, something we've had right opposite here just a couple of days ago. Since 1994, the sixth telephone pole has been replaced. So around this corner, we have somehow some magnetic attraction between automobiles and telephone poles in our part of the world. There is a sharp turn up here. There is a turn up here anyway, and that's the reason why I raised that particular issue.
The question again was, the question was?
Which side of the road will it be in?
Okay, gotcha. And your answer was?
I'm curious, do you want the poles replaced?
Do I want the poles replaced?
Yeah.
And I'm asking, I mean, there's existing pole right now. I'm questioning, are you adding more poles? I don't know how you connect to the grid. What are the implications there?
So the utility owns that.
Yeah.
We don't have our interconnection agreements from them yet.
Yeah.
They will dictate what needs to happen. Most likely, they might take the existing pole out and put in a bigger one.
Right.
Just upgrading it. That's happened around town recently. So it's common. They just use the opportunity of us paying for it to get new infrastructure.
Well, yeah, it's not up to, it's not a question of me looking for a new pole or a better pole. I didn't know if there were going to be more poles.
Usually it's not.
And obviously, it's on our side of the road in terms of property rather than the Bashista side of the property. It's not a big issue for me in a way, you know. But I'm just curious as to what happens, what the implications might be in terms of the connection to the grid, and whether it would require more poles to be installed, and what the implications might be for accidental and other damage in that regard. So a car comes by and knocks that pole down, that's going to take your grid offline, right?
It would do the same to us as it would
To anybody else in that regard, okay. The second question I have is related to, is the access road going to be along,
Is this going to be along the perimeter here that you're going to be for construction?
Right here.
Are you coming through for
Yep.
construction? Okay.
It's going to be on the outside of the orchard area. Back there.
Okay. So nothing up here that in terms of anything?
Nope.
Good. And I understand as well, you said that you estimate a 35-year project duration?
So that's still East Street, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
And the last thing, you're estimating a 35-year project duration, is that correct? So, prior to decommissioning? And so if the Bashistas decide to decommission, you folks would take everything away? There would be no solar junkyard afterwards type of
It's
thing?
part of the
Okay,
bylaw, the decommissioning and the removal.
Okay, that's...
There's a bond involved in this that protects, in case they do abandon it after that period of time, there's a bond held that will...
Okay, great. No, it's, for us as a butters, we view this quite favorably. There's no doubt about that in a way. We think it can be beneficial to the town of Southampton as well as us as a butters. So ultimately, we hope this project goes through. Thank you.
Any other comments? Anybody would like to speak in favor of this or give it a thumbs up? Or go ahead, sir.
Hello, I'm John O'Shea. I live on Middle Road. I received a letter, so I'm in a butter, so I'm curious. Generally, I'm in favor of renewable energy. I do have solar panels on my roof. There, I can see the value of them. From where I live on Middle Road, I don't expect I'm going to see or hear the panels. I was curious, are any of the trees that are going to be planted, are they going to screen the panels from the road as you drive by? Or are they intended to be lower than the panels?
The apples and the other fruit trees that Tom will be planting won't provide significant screening. They'll be in the rows in between the panels. You can't have them too tall or they'll shade the panels.
Right, okay.
However, at one point, just to add to that, if you can picture yourself standing in the parking lot of Bush's Orchards and looking up on the hill, it goes up fairly steep, and after that grade changes and it does flatten out, our array is slightly back from that point, and those trees are fairly tall at that spot. It's hard to say if you'd be able to see them there. I think further south, where the forest is, there might be a few spots where you can see panels from those trees, but it is not, a landscape of glass.
Okay, all right. Well, generally speaking, like I said, I'm in favor of renewable energy. The Bashistas have been good neighbors, good community members, and I think if this helps them keep Bashista Orchard up and running, then I'm in favor of it.
Anyone else? All right, where would you like this to go now? Oops, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm Virginia Huntley. I live at 149 East Street. I have known the Bashista family all my life, and they have done nothing that we wouldn't be proud of. So I support this 100%.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure they appreciate that. Anyone else? Do we have enough information that we need to close this public hearing and...
I've still got the hearing for the stormwater as part of it.
I've got to close the site plan first.
No, it's advertised one hearing.
So you want to continue in both?
Yeah.
All right.
You didn't advertise separate hearings, advertise one hearing, so.
I didn't know because there were separate permits if you had to close one of them.
No, I would carry through it sequentially, though.
All right. So at this time, now that the site plan has been addressed, who would like to address the stormwater? Mr. VHB?
So the stormwater permit application is essentially a takeoff of the site plan approval. It's the same project design, but we have completed the stormwater permit application for concurrent review with the site plan approval. The civil site plans and the application demonstrate that the stormwater management plan requirements have been met. We've provided the land use, proposed easements, existing and proposed utilities, topographic contours at 2-foot intervals, and the other items requested on the application form. I can summarize the stormwater features of the project. As I mentioned earlier, we have sought to minimize grading and disturbance to the extent practical because the project will be used for agriculture, so we don't want to disturb topsoil where the solar arrays will go, where the agrivoltaic project will go. We've only proposed grading for the access road. Terrain in general slopes to the west and the northwest. So there are stormwater detention basins proposed alongside the access road at the bottom, topographic bottom of the project. We don't have appropriate soils for infiltration basins, so we proposed detention basins. With the minimal grading, the existing drainage patterns will be maintained, with the exception, as I said, of the grading of the road, which will have a drainage swale running alongside the road leading to those detention basins. The basins are sized to convey the 10-year and smaller storms and provide overflow path for the 100-year storms. So the permanent erosion and sediment control mechanisms, there will be grass or riprap lined swales alongside the road, stone protection at upstream and downstream ends of the culverts that convey the stormwater beneath the road to those basins. And then temporary erosion controls. There'll be a stabilized construction exit, silt fence, or other erosion control barriers during the course of construction, and temporary stone check dams in the swales until vegetation is established. So as explained on the form and the attached narrative, the project does meet the requirements of the stormwater bylaw. We had a few comments. An inspection and maintenance agreement is requested by the form that will be provided prior to the issuance of a building permit. The proposed lease area will be developed between the applicant and landowner as the project progresses. The 100-year floodplain is not present on the site. There are no Massachusetts NHESP priority habitats or certified vernal pools on the site or within 500 feet of the activity. The application asks for seasonal high groundwater elevation, and we're proposing soil testing prior to construction. Permanent seeding and erosion control measures are shown on the civil site plans. Yeah, and that's it. I'd be happy to entertain questions.
Will the basins infiltrate or they discharge?
They're storage. They will infiltrate minimally, but they're not designed for infiltration because the soils are not
hydrologic. They can store for what duration?
Until the water evaporates.
But what's your projected? Is it going to be a 72-hour evaporation, or is it going to be standing water for a month? Is it? What's your?
Yeah.
I'm used to basins either discharging or infiltrating, so there's not a standing water issue with mosquito breeding, stuff like
Yes.
that.
They will discharge as well. I don't know the duration. I can find out though, because the civil engineer who designed the project is right here. This principal civil engineer who designed the project lives about 3 hours from Southampton. Through the magic of the internet, some of us work remotely most of the time, so it was not reasonable for her to attend the meeting. So I've asked the question. They may hold water will drain within 24 to 72 hours.
So we'll meet the 72-hour standard.
Where are those basins going to be in conjunction with that plan?
Where? Just ask. There'll be 2 or 3 alongside the access road, so at the bottom of the orchard. And the drainage swale I mentioned would come down along the access road.
The drainage trail is going to discharge into the basins. Basins will evaporate, infiltrate within 24, 72 hours.
From the plan, the design shows at the bottom of the basin, it's the same elevation as the inlet of the outlet pipe, so apparently there's no standing water. It should already be.
I was going by his description, that's what had me concerned.
They're intended to be dry outside of storm events.
And you have O&M plan, but don't have, you do have O&M plan drafted already, right?
For the stormwater? No, we don't have a one.
Because usually I see that done as part of the stormwater report. I understand the agreement's not drafted, but I assume you had an O&M plan.
I'm not sure.
That wasn't included?
What?
That wasn't included? So that's a condition?
Yeah.
Well, in the narrative, we wrote, an inspection and maintenance agreement with the operation and maintenance plan will be provided prior to the issuance of a building permit. Is that something that's needed with the permit application?
I customarily see it as part of a stormwater permit application. Usually as an attachment to the stormwater drainage report. Those are fairly standard forms that are used.
If there's a chance to get approved tonight, we'd accept that as a condition. So.
Questions from the board on the stormwater, Stephen?
I don't know where this might or might not be found in the standards. Have you a profile of the access road that you're proposing, and what's the maximum grade that it achieves?
The maximum grade of the access road? It may be in the civil plans. Let me see.
This is the same plan, but it's not a profile, but
No.
shows the grading doing that.
So let me ask a question differently. How much soil testing information do you have? You mentioned you wanted to postpone groundwater elevation testing, but can you go through the extent of your geotech investigation so far? I mean, you've anticipated there may be some ledge, but what do you really know about the geotech conditions?
The geotechnical analysis is scheduled, but is not completed yet.
So your cut and fills could be harder than they look.
It's conceivable, yes. The maximum grade of the access road is 10%.
Oh, thank you.
And that's per fire code, apparently.
Thought it would come in there somewhere.
Just answer your question. The bylaw doesn't require them to submit a profile, so there's not a profile.
Ian?
Oh, I think I'm just trying to find the answer to my question about how the culverts were sized. I'm sure it's in here, and it said refer to Appendix A, so I was just flipping through to see if I could find it myself before I asked the question. So, unless you want to speak to it.
You know about the culverts, did you?
No.
So make sure they're sufficiently sized.
I'm sure it's in that report, which
Sure it is.
I don't have that information.
Yeah.
Where you want to go with this now?
Well, it's really a question for the board. If the board is comfortable with the stormwater report, or is there questions that you have outstanding that you want to have information on before you close the hearing on stormwater?
I mean, mine is more about having the operation and maintenance plan.
Yeah.
And closing it without that, that's my biggest concern. What do you think?
No, we have a request already for a marked up civil sheet that shows the isolated areas of grading over 15%, or trying to avoid. What the board could do, the board could either close the hearing and then act on information, or if you want this additional information, you could require it as part of a condition, but you wouldn't have it before you make a decision. Or you could continue the hearing for the sole purpose of receiving one, an O&M plan, two, the markup of the civil sheets regarding the 15% slope areas. And I believe that was the only two items that I've heard from the board.
Well, you had soil analysis brought up.
And soil analysis as well. But are you comfortable with their response, or do you want to see soil analysis before acted on?
You brought that up, Stephen, right?
I did bring it up, yes.
Would you like to see that?
Because soil analysis is not something that they can do rather quickly. That's going to take, and I can see that being more appropriate for permit and as a condition of approval. So my question is,
I guess I'm not.
what do you want to see, what the board wants to see before you make a decision?
I'm going to defer to Mark on that. because of
Yeah,
his
I'm not
experience.
too worried about seeing the soils. I think you're using a standard USDA soil for soil cover type, and you know, there's really no big structural things. You're not utilizing infiltration on the basins. But I do have a couple comments on some of the drainage. A little bit concerned on a couple of the items. Specifically, the detention basin number 2, the second one down, the discharge is about 10 feet from the property line for the detention basin, and just a little bit concerned about the closeness of that discharge to the property line. I know it's discharged at the same location, but is still there. And also, with detention basin number 2, actually, and also number 1, in the 100-year storm, it actually shows the water overtopping the roadway and flowing across the top of the roadway. A little concerned about the water flowing across the road and whether or not it's going to erode the road. And also on the downhill side of the road, it's not necessarily protected. You have an option or details to riprap the sides of the roadway, but it's not necessarily designated in the areas in detention basin 1 and 2 on the downhill side, because you are anticipating water going across the road, 6 cubic feet per second. Waltzing across the road. I'm concerned about the water washing the road away and/or washing the slope on the downhill side.
Now, you're referring to the access road.
Access drive.
Yeah, the access road.
I would refer to that as access drive, not a road.
Access drive, I'm sorry. But, concerned about the erosion and whether or not there should be some type of protection on the road in that location. I know it's not going to happen every day, but it is designed such that there will be water flowing across the road. It's fairly significant. So I would suggest that on detention basin 1 and 2, that the roadway itself be protected for water flowing across it, as well as the downhill slope of that access drive being riprapped. It's not shown as riprapped on the plans.
I do have a note, the road and the embankment at the overtopping locations will be reinforced with larger stone to reduce the likelihood of erosion.
Yeah.
But if it's not shown, that's what I have on notes from the engineer. I would have anticipated it would have been shown.
Not shown, correct?
I know.
But it was designed that way intentionally for potential for overflow in the 100-year storm.
So maybe appropriate to have a detail for that area.
All right, so any other questions from the board?
No.
All right, so I'm going to ask for a motion to close the public hearing so we can then condition it, or?
Well, that's the question. Dana indicated, if I understood correctly, he wanted to see the O&M plan before acting on the application.
Right, so my question would be, how are we going to have when would we have the opportunity to technically review that operation and maintenance plan if we were to close?
So then the sentiment is to continue it first, get all this information in before we close it.
No. If you continue, my suggestion is if we continue for only 2 specific pieces of information. 1, the O&M plan.
Right.
And 2, the marked up civil sheet showing the areas of 15% grade that we're trying to avoid altering.
Okay.
How about
Point of
the...
clarification, we have provided an O&M plan.
Yeah.
We can.
That's for the...
We don't have a special stormwater O&M plan generally. Our O&M plan is for the whole project, so maybe just a different approach, but I want to just point that out.
Yeah, I understand you have O&M plan for the solar facility.
No,
there's a required one for a specific one for stormwater.
Well, our O&M plan typically talks about basin maintenance and taking sediment out. It's just a fractional part of O&M to us, so we don't have a standalone stormwater O&M plan.
Because usually they have schedules of when they're going to do everything in O&M for stormwater.
Yeah, I'm not saying we couldn't make it. It's just not our standard approach, and what we've provided, we think is...
That's a standard approach in stormwater permitting is a O&M plan that has schedules of when certain tasks, certain plans will be made, basins will be maintained, inspected, etc. And very honestly, those need to be cranked out in over a day or 2. It's usually not a lengthy process because they are so standard.
I mean, if I could, being that it is so standard, I mean, it seems to me, and Mr. Garland can probably attest, he's done a billion of them, but, they're standard in just putting in when that maintenance schedule is. I don't know that it needs to be continued to present it by all means if you want to review it before, but I mean, it is pretty standard across industry practice for what those O&Ms look like, typically attached to a drainage and stormwater management report. But if we're coming back, we're coming back. If you're going to close, I think it's just a decision, with all due respect, that the board has to make. Are we coming back? If so, it's on those couple of limited areas. If we're not, you can close it conditional on us providing those to, whether it's Mr. Harris or the board, for acceptance prior to receipt of a building permit. Really,
I'm getting the impression, though, you want to keep it open until this material is submitted, correct?
I think that's a better form.
Dan?
Yes.
Mark?
And if you're going to do that, what I'd suggest is I would also provide for you a draft decision that could then be discussed as part of the public hearing at the same time.
What was the, you said only 2 items when it came to...
The O&M plan for the stormwater?
How do you address what Mark was asking about the...
He's fine with the soils.
No, on number 1 and number 2...
Reading?
I suggested that the plan should reflect a detail of where, you just got a note there, but have a detail of how it's going to be treated at those locations.
On the plan, right?
On the silver sheet, yeah.
and we heard what you said about the riprap on the sides to protect the access drives.
Yeah.
So we've got that.
So you can just have a detail sheet for those areas of overtopping the riprap that will be provided.
All right, so is that clear, the information that's required? And that being the case, I'm going to ask for a motion to continue this until December 24th.
I don't think so.
December 24th?
I don't think so.
I'm game.
You're not sleeping yet, are you?
I mean, we are good public servants, but...
You have to double my pay.
Make it early, I'll make it 3 o'clock.
Still
No,
down.
our next meeting is December 20th, 7 PM. So I would entertain a motion then from someone to continue this hearing.
I move that we continue this public hearing to December 20th at 7:05 PM to further review the application. And do you want to recite the things that we're looking for?
I think it should be clear in motion that it's for the submission of a marked-up silver sheets showing areas of 15% slope that being impacted, and
the slopes,
the O&M plan, and then if you can provide the detail for the riprap where the access way be overtopped.
1, 2, 3.
Then I'll provide you with the draft decisions as well.
Motion made by Stephen, second by anyone?
Second.
Mark seconded. Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so we'll see all those interested parties back here on December 20th.
And you don't have to count the trees.
But you haven't voted on that yet, but I assume there's no objection to the waivers.
We would have let them know, I think.
Thank you for your presentation tonight. Thanks for the Bashistas and your patience. Good luck.
Just so that it's special permit and site plan. Because I think that notice special permit. Oh, yeah. No, that's what, when they sent it to me, I was like, what'd you ask for, what'd you do? So as long as we, both of them, and then we'll go through, so the both are informed, different about the organization, all the way back.
Do you have
Thank you, guys.
You got me to
I need to write down.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. Hey, this is a small town here, you know.
At Bacon Wilson, BACONWILS.
You guys are on your way. You're well on your way. Just some loose ends to tie up.
I've been through a lot of work. By the way, in case you do work for private homes, folks do, you ever need anybody?
Okay. Yeah, send me an email and then I'll have it and then I'll be able to, good to bring you into.
something to
I'm
think
working
about.
on now wants to do some multifamily stuff, having it done now. We're drafting a bylaw amendment that would allow.
And I'm delighted
And I'm
that
sure they'll receive it, I know that, and we'll be like, oh, wait, Richard helped you with this?
Oh, we got it.
I'm sure.
They're all
I guess that's the only thing people cared about. Everybody's leaving.
I wanted to introduce myself.
Steve Johnson.
Oh, you had a guy. Thank you for all your hard work.
DeViller's still involved with Blue Wave, or is he retired to a board position?
We have some more business to conduct.
Every now and then.
Fernando's, but yeah.
Generally, here the guy
Like when I first started with Nicholas, we came into town and got that, and then they never like did anything. But yeah, back there on Cranberry Road.
Assistant Secretary.
In touch.
Yes, please.
More business to conduct. Thank you.
They keep you late. Nice to meet you.
I'm seeing McConnell tomorrow. He's coming to the office.
He looks familiar. What, is he with Berkshire?
No, he's with
Building permits. We really have.
Building permits.
Springfield.
Oh, we want to reestablish Baypack, so that's an important discussion.
Is there a packet we were supposed to pick up here? We just get this when we walk in the door.
Do we get anything else? We get everything else through email. He doesn't provide a print copy. This is, getting this whole thing is not.
All right, guys, let's see if we can wrap this up. We've got quite a bit left here. It's mostly discussion, but in between the last meeting that was canceled and this one, there were 3 building permits that came in that were well under the 40,000 square feet threshold that I had approved. One was kind of academic, Berkshire County area retarded children there, the 120 East Street that we had approved the stormwater management plan on. So that was just a formality for them to come for the building permit. Another one was a home building being built on 36 Cold Spring Road by David Gartzka. And then the third one was a subdivision that we approved 3 years ago, Gill Farm Estates, number 6 Gill Farm Road, lot number 3. And that was approved. The subdivision itself was under stormwater management, so that was kind of a no-brainer too. So those had been previously approved. We have discussions coming up, and I'll keep Richard here for these to get his input. But first one is Dan had brought up about reestablishing Baypack because of it stemmed from the proposed
Gas station.
gas station there, gas station and water supply
Proposed
district.
change to our zoning bylaw.
Right.
It was not a permit application.
No, it was just
Very true.
it was just hypothetical discussion.
That was kind of fundamental to my approach to this issue.
So what's your plan, Dan, to resurrect Baypack?
So, yeah, I mean, there's already been some communication. I think I reached out to them just to see if there was any interest from PVPC in this topic, and they had mentioned that they had already, there were some other towns that had, I think in the southern part of the Pioneer Valley, that were looking to do something for their water protection, which is still impacts the Barnes Aquifer. So they, Patty had sent along a version of the DLTA grant that we could use. I think, I'd really leave it to Mr. Harris, who had a chance to look at them to see what would be what would be the most beneficial for Southampton, which way to go about this, what to pursue. I think we know what we want to do is really we want to, through the grant, reestablish the connections with surrounding towns, and as surrounding towns come to an agreement on our water protection bylaws, so that we're all in sync, we're not applying different rules in different municipalities, such that we're all protecting the same water, the water that we're all drinking from.
So,
I see you had communication with Ken Comia, and he said that the Westfield master plan identified that recently or something. Tell me, why was it disbanded? Anybody know?
I had a conversation with Marla Hank, who was on the BayPAC committee about it, what happened, and it was the town of Westfield had some violations over, oh geez, what was it? Anyways, they had to shut down one of their wells, and they were causing it. I don't know if somehow politically in Westfield, it didn't work well for them anymore to support BayPAC. Whatever members of the town's municipality was in charge at that point. So they decided to drop, and they started falling. The whole thing fell apart. So it's only as strong as the towns that support it.
And yet they had a representative here for that hearing we had. Or
So
not
things
hearing,
go in
discussion.
cycles and different.
So,
I think, very frankly, it's unrealistic to expect that all the communities are going to be in sync on their water supply protection district. I think the fact is they have different community and economic objectives, and they have different levels of impact on the water supply and how they impact by different communities' water supply. But I think what the email exchange with Patty Cambrini and Daniel, based on that, what I did is I drafted up a DLTA request that would get Pioneer Valley Planning Commission to do basically two tasks. One would update the Water Supply Protection District map and text for Southampton, and to do that through a variety of tasks, but also through a public engagement task that would public engagement within the town and with surrounding communities. That would anticipate leading to an assessment of whether or not BayPAC could be reestablished. Is there sufficient support within the surrounding communities to do that? But in any case, the public engagement process in developing our water supply protection district would involve working with the other communities as well to get their input into water supply protection district as a model for the area, and then recognize that each community is going to tweak it to fit their own particular needs and concerns. So that's what I've drafted up basically for as a DOT request.
I think that reflects where we're at. You know, hiatus process with a Southampton-specific objective.
Yeah.
I think that's more realistic, than what I say of trying to get multiple municipalities to come to an agreement. That's I guess, a big dream.
In theory, it should work that way, but
I know.
Now you can look at the zoning bylaws ordinances from Westfield, Holyoke, and you can see they have vastly different objectives for water supply protection than what other communities have.
I think it's good, though, for you to designate, because wasn't the big question, there was no designation of what districts or what were they, in categories?
Like in Holyoke, they have some inconsistent category descriptions. In Southampton, we have some issues of a vague category and a very specific prohibited use category, and need to reconcile those.
What are the, is there zones or districts or whatever?
It's 3 zones, zone 1, 2, and 3. And I'm dealing with it in another community where the Mass GIS data layer shows, and they got like 6 wells in this other community, and in 2 of those wells have a zone 2 that overlaps their zone 1, which in theory is not possible. Because by definition, zone 2 excludes zone 1. It's the way it's set up. It's supposed to be that way. And I'm got email out to Mass DEP from Central Region Mass saying, can you explain this to me? Because, and I told Larry Smith about it too, he said, that's not possible. I said, I know, but it shows up on the map that way. And so we want to be sure we have some very clear understanding of the zone 1, 2, and 3 boundaries. And then you can use the model, the most recent DEP model for a water supply protection district to work from. The one you have was basically developed back in 1990s. They developed a new model in 2011. And that new model reflects the better understanding, new technology related to above ground storage, for instance. It doesn't prohibit storage. It says if you have storage, it's got to be above ground, and this side has to be done.
Okay, so is this going to also include maybe rewriting or editing the current bylaw?
Yeah, it'll be developing a new water supply protection district provision.
Because we never covered that in
Right. Now, we need to understand what the time frame would be. No, you're not going to have it ready for the May 2024 town meeting. It will be probably May 2025. The reason I say that is typically, my understanding, PVPC starts up their DOTA projects around June, July. They're not going to start them up in January typically.
Right.
And very frankly, even if they start this up in January, you wouldn't have it ready for this May. So you're probably looking at a year and a half out.
Yeah. Okay.
When you're talking about redoing our maps, I mean, that can be, you know, just essentially you upgrading it to the mass, the GIS information, or, you know, actual studies to determine what zone 2 is.
The Mass DEP promulgates the zones 1, 2, and 3 data, and it'll be a matter of PVPC obtaining the most current Mass DEP data on those 3 delineations and mapping those for us.
Okay, so DEP would be?
Yeah, DEP provides that data.
Okay, I mean, typically zone 2 delineation is a very strict, extensive design drawdown process.
But that they have, for each water supply, they developed that database already because the water supplier has to have that information.
Yeah, water supply, yeah.
All right, you good on that, Dan?
Yeah, do we need a vote?
I think, I would suggest a motion to authorize the chair to submit a district local technical assistance request to do the 2024 Drinking Water Supply Protection Initiative.
I would like to make that motion.
I would like to second that.
Motion made by Dan and seconded by Steve. The water supply protection plan going forward to request to DLTA.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now if I can have your signature on that application form, I can scan in tonight and
Let me
submit.
read the fine print here.
Well, it says Paul's gonna pay for everything.
Deep pockets.
You don't have any money, I don't know how we can.
It comes out of his planning board salary.
We're going to talk about that, too.
That's right, we got to approve that. Maybe that's in jeopardy.
I quit. Let's see, next here. So we've got DLTA. Now, Dan, you had an inquiry about some solar, a company that contacted or agency?
Right, so I'm on the Ad Hoc Technology Committee, and as part of the Ad Hoc Technology Committee, one of our charges was to look into if there's any solar solutions for the towns. Broad statement, maybe municipal solar, community-based shared solar, it could span any of those things. So we started the conversation, and one of the companies we talked to is called Soul Smart, and they're funded by the government through the World Research Organization. And basically what they do, and the reason why the Technology Committee is referring this to the Planning Board is because Soul Smart's whole job is to provide free review of solar zoning bylaws such that their goal is to reduce the burden in solar installation, so to make it easier.
Yeah, more streamline it.
Streamline is the right word. So it doesn't cost the town anything, a municipality anything. There's a number, there are towns all over the United States that have done it. There's no town in the western part of Massachusetts that's done it. There are like 5 towns in the eastern part. The result for the town is you get the free review. You don't have to do anything with it. They'll just review your bylaw and give you suggestions. If you incorporate things and meet different criteria, you can be certified by them as I think it's like gold, silver, bronze, whatever level provider or solar community. What that certification gets you is, well, as far as I could tell, is nothing more than a plaque. But perhaps there are people or industry businesses that would look to a town to move to for that purpose. Maybe we would see more applicants like Blue Wave looking in town to provide for solar. That could be a result.
And you said this is no cost.
No, it's all paid through the U.S. government. Basically.
Any comment from you on that?
I know nothing about them, so I can't.
I mean, I don't have an objection to it if it's not going to cost anything. I mean,
yes.
I'll chip in. I watched the.
You watched it, yeah.
I watched the committee meeting and the presentation by Soul
Smart.
Soul Smart.
SOLSMART?
Yeah.
Soul Smart.
They're trying to reduce the barriers, especially the inadvertent barriers to solar, and generally roll out this renewable energy program nationwide. But it's a recognition program for municipalities that take certain steps, and they're in categories of governance, the bylaw, municipal operations, a bunch of areas. You have to meet your distributional requirement, and then you have to have enough credits to get bronze, silver, gold. But I think Dan is right. If it's of any use, it's because entrepreneurs like Blue Source and others will say, okay, here's a community that's at least making the effort to make it work.
Solar friendly.
They can give us some ideas of what you need to do to change your solar bylaw. And you decide whether those ideas that you want to consider or not.
Yeah, it's non-binding.
Control's all with us.
So I don't know, you've got the contact. If they have any paperwork to sign, have them get in contact with me or whatever. But I will officially ask for a motion, the board, if you want to
make a motion that
engage Soul Smart.
Or do you want to ask that they attend the planning board meeting in January to go over with the full board?
You can have that. Would
that be better? Have them come and meet with us?
There's no rush to get them to review it and have the feedback.
All right, so why don't you ask them, because we meet, our schedule, the first and third Wednesdays, and ask them if they could come after the first of the year and give us a short presentation.
I think the rush perspective is that we would like to get their input as soon as possible so that we can use that as input in revising the solar bylaw revisions. So that's the rush for us.
But do you see that like coming up really soon? I guess like in your order once you're going through things.
Depends on how quickly they come back with something. We could, with May town meeting, if they come back with something in February, March.
Yeah, I don't know what their time frame, what their promise to.
It would be. We could work on it. It's possible, but
it starts with a review of the bylaw. But whether we have need to do anything substantial rewriting the bylaw is yet to be determined. I think as they go along, they'll see You have this provision for 5 points, you have this provision for 10 points, you've already achieved bronze.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I would tell you there's some need to revise bylaw. I'm talking to Tom Reedy tonight.
I didn't want to prejudge that, but it goes beyond just the bylaw, and it extends to the kinds of things that motivated the committee in the first place. What can we do for reducing energy costs to the municipality and to its citizens? And a variety of solar solutions are possible there. They don't design and install. They don't do permitting.
No.
But they do provide technical assistance to introduce you to that world, to help you understand what are the steps you'd need to take. What kind of municipal parcel would be reasonable to pursue with a geotech study to see if it's, and what is the structure? Do we have enough subscribers to do a community solar like Valley Co-op did? Or would it be more limited to just serve a few buildings that, town buildings? We have a campus here that may be expanding or not, and some land up the hill, I think. So there are a lot of places this might end up. It starts with bylaw. I think the idea of a presentation in January is great. I just think that it's the day after the holiday. So, right? No, it must be the 4th or something. It's a Wednesday comes early that month.
The 3rd.
The 3rd.
Yeah.
Comes 2 days after New Year's, that's fine.
Oh, maybe we'll be sober then. It's already on my calendar. All right, guys. Move adjourned.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to have Soul Smart give a presentation to the planning board committee, planning board about what their services are and what they provide.
Thank you. Next on my agenda list here, I've got a request that came from the town administrator, capital improvements requests from all the departments, and I'm saying, what capital improvements? You know, I've got this thing here that's got what might be in the budget for next year. It's got a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, blah, blah, blah. Now, our needs are quite simple. Capital improvements, about the only thing I could think of off the top of my head was many years ago, one of the chairman he broached the subject, but it got shot down or ignored, about each member of the board having their own laptop.
Oh.
And I don't know what you folks feel about that, but it's the only capital request I can think of from this board.
It's not a capital item.
I mean, when I think of capital, I'm thinking of an asset, something physical.
Typically, you do iPads, and those wouldn't be, even small laptops wouldn't be a capital item. They're so small, they don't add up. I guess if you did them for enough departments, enough boards, in aggregate might be a capital, but normally you wouldn't consider those capital items.
I've got this form here.
Question for you about this stuff. Do we have a place to store all the plans? Do we need some kind of filing cabinet? Should we have filing cabinets?
No, we've got them upstairs on
That
the
will
third
accommodate.
floor.
I'm just thinking about long-term, 5-term. Is there anything else we need for storage, even digital storage or something of that nature? I mean,
Probably could use a
$10.
file cabinet down the road, but I mean,
That's yeah.
Again, that's an expendable items on capital item.
but I mean, the biggest thing, and I brought it up to Dan, I brought it up to the select board twice in the last 2 planning board reports they've had in recent years about maybe getting a part-time person hired department head. I was kind of taken aback, and this is in no way being derogatory against the conservation agent. I started getting emails from a conservation agent months ago, and I said, well, what's this all about? I said, I know Marla Hank, and I know Art Lawrence, and I never was officially introduced to this person that was hired as a conservation agent. I'm saying, well, geez.
They had retired just at that same moment in time. They're no longer on the Concom.
And I said, I've been asking for an agent that would have been both working for the planning board, the conservation, and in conjunction with the building department, because they're all intertwined. And guess my request fell on deaf ears, but I was just kind of concerned why you focused on one committee when you could probably have this person, which Whately hired someone, and some other smaller towns our size have hired a person to help these boards that are volunteer, that don't have a lot of time on their hands, and a lot of times they don't even have quorums, but the amount of paperwork and stuff that's building up with this job is more than I ever envisioned. And
I think it's time for us to ask for an agent, and the way to do that is, interesting enough, you don't go directly to the planning or the select board to ask them. You submit a request to basically the HR department of our town.
Committee.
is that this? That's not in this.
I don't know what that is.
This is the capital committee.
No.
No, it's not the capital. It's I got it in my phone.
You have a personnel committee that...
No policy.
Yeah. So basically, you fill out the form, say what you want, and it goes to them, and then the select board sees it. You don't.
So it would be a modification of an existing or brand-new position drawing.
It would, it would be a department that would assist the conservation, planning, and building department.
Right. How many hours a week would you propose?
I have no idea.
And skill set?
How many hours is the conservation agent?
Maybe 10?
You know, you're probably looking at is a roughly 20-hour-a-week person that would be supporting conservation and planning and just a lesser degree of the building, but yeah.
Yeah, but would we be looking for a unicorn? Or like a pink unicorn?
No, actually, it's not uncommon, really.
To have the skills.
There's a number of communities that have planning and conservation administrators combined, or and typically smaller towns where they're doing it to try to save money. Because, yeah, you can hire a conservation agent at 15 hours a week, and you hire a system planner, a planner at 15 hours a week. You got 2 half-time people versus having 1 full-time person that then could do some additional grants work and stuff like that as well. So ideally, I'd probably suggest maybe look at suggesting that they have a full-time person that supports the 3 departments and then be willing to accept a half-time person.
And then the capital request is not a laptop, but a full GIS workstation.
Yeah.
Our water department has, I don't even know that they use it. I cannot picture any of our, well, I haven't been there, so I'll just shut my
What did you call that, a GIS workstation?
It used to be quite a super contraption, but it's basically a high-powered desktop computer with a couple of large monitors and appropriate, fine. Do better.
Yeah, typically a lot of those are done through nice digital mice nowadays, and what you probably would do in Southampton is you'd have something like that, but you would then draw upon the PVPC GIS expertise to do a lot of the base maps and stuff, so then you can edit them locally. And
certainly any analysis shipped down there. And you drop their database. You don't have to create data. That's the beautiful thing. The state invested in a statewide GIS, and then, the assessors got involved and so on. So it's a comprehensive resource statewide that didn't always exist.
And the assessor's database is not something to be looked over. Got to remember, the assessors have to have maps done of all the parcels. The South Hadley, they were updating they're having CAI update their maps. We were updating our GIS data layer. But we ended up then saying, why don't you just have CIA maintain all the GIS database? And then we put that on the website so people can use it. And it becomes a cost-effective method for the town. Because now staff is not doing duplicative work, and we're all using the same database. And I will tell you, I have an ArcGIS license for my laptop and doing consulting work, and anytime I get a community, I download the database from MassGIS so I can play around with them. That's how I find out some of the issues of Zone 1, Zone 2 boundaries don't work. There's no Zone 3 database on MassGIS right now. And where does that come from? And I did a lot of work with Project Holyoke where I used a lot of GIS stuff. So yeah, I mean, what you want to do is ask for a person that would support building, conservation, and planning. They would have basic planning skill set, environmental and science skill set for conservation, administrative support in terms of building. And then if you get that person, then you wouldn't want to have a GIS workstation, large-scale monitor, high-powered CPU, and ArcGIS license that they can work with. And then
I already signed the warrant for our ArcGIS license, and it's at the Water Department. And so actually making broader use of that resource in town government would go right along with having this shared person to pay attention to filings as they come in, start all the regulatory clocks that need to be started when that's an issue. It would be hugely helpful.
And they'd pick up things like soda bylaw that under the use schedule says you need a special permit from the planning board, but under Article 6, Section 16 says you need site plan approval. They'd pick that up early on and make sure that gets resolved in the process.
Yep.
That's what Tom and I were talking about.
All right. Just a brief note. The select board had told or informed Eversource that they had to contact us to go forward with poles or any kind of
detailed map of what they were proposing
on Manhan Road for the scenic road. And Ed sent me an email this afternoon, asked if I had heard from him, and I have not. So when they do, we'll set it up.
Are they in any way exempt from the wetlands law, or would they be going for a river protection permit because they're within 200 feet of the Manhan?
They've been going through permitting South Hadley and every place else for their pole reconstruction projects. So there's some activities that are exempt because of maintenance, but some they're not.
Otherwise, that's all I have. I have two warrants. One is for this gentleman over here for his...
Just motion, second proof. That's
his work in November. His work in November, $774.90. Motion to approve.
I move that we approve the warrant item for Richard Harris reimbursement or stipend of $774.90.
Second that.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. And then the other one was for the public hearing ad for what we just had here tonight with Blue Wave. The legal advertisement was $498.20. I need a motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve the invoice for Daily Hampshire Gazette of
$498.20.
$498.20.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
And just so you know, and Richard thought we ought to discuss this down the road again with solar, but the fee for the application for this project is $5,000.
For the solar?
And he was quite surprised, but believe me, when we did this solar bylaw several years ago, I'm just guessing, was it 2014 perhaps? Somewhere in there, 2014, 2013. We had someone come in to try to guide us through. It wasn't PVPC or anything, but solar was just coming into town, and we had nothing. So we had to scurry to get something on the books. And part of that was fees. And come to find out, maybe some of these fees are higher than they should be, but it is what it is now.
How are they computed, based upon size or just?
Size.
Application fee should be sufficient to reasonably cover the cost of processing the application. $5,000 is much more than need reasonably process. So Paul asked me, should we be asking them for a peer review? For my time, I said, not when they paid $5,000, so no.
I asked Richard, I said, would you give me a quotation for your services for this so I can forward it to them? I said, do you think it would be,
I don't think that would work.
add to the insult, I guess, to say, well, what you do with the $5,000?
Let's table this thought of reducing the fees until we understand what we might be paying for this new staff person.
And I'm borrowing this, so I can use this to drop the decision.
So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn, and we'll see you again on the 20th. If there wasn't any business, I probably would have canceled it, given the holidays, but we got to put this to rest in fairness to them. So, motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Mark says so, let's do it. All in favor? Aye.